The gentleman from Oklahoma.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Bernanke, most of the focus of the credit crisis has been centered on the nation's largest banks and biggest businesses. But there's a whole segment of the financial industry out there that's not received that much attention. And that's rural America, where we have hundreds of thousands of farms and ranches and small businesses that are located out in the countryside in small towns, small cities, communities. While the major banks have been a presence in rural America, some kind of define them as a fair weather friend, in fact. It's the small independent community banks who are the center of credit availability in most of these communities. Would you touch for a moment on the health of and the status of these institutions? Are they suffering some of the same problems as the major facilities? Are they in a different set of circumstances? Would you expand on that for just a moment?
Certainly. So the Federal Reserve, of course, supervises many small banks. So we have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience with these banks. We've always valued the contribution that they make. What the small bank does, what the community bank does, is it has the local knowledge, the local contacts, the local information, and builds the local relationships that allow it to make loans that a large bank may not be able to make, and to support small business and agriculture and other activities. So we think the small banks and community banks are critical to our system. We're very happy that they're there. We believe they'll continue to be important to the system. Some of them clearly will suffer in this crisis. It depends very much on the decisions they've made. It's true that small banks didn't get involved for the most part in subprime lending, for example. Some do hold, though, concentrations of commercial real estate and other types of real estate assets which may lose value under the current circumstances. So some will be in stress, and we have had some closures, as you know. But on the other hand, there is, as you point out, an opportunity also to the extent that large banks are withdrawing from some of these communities and are reserving credit availability to their large customers. There's a new opportunity for some of these banks to reestablish relationships and to come back in and support the local economy. So I'm glad they're there, and I think they'll be very constructive.
Is it fair to say that by the very nature of what their asset base is made up of, deposits, that they have not suffered from some of the same credit seizure problems perhaps as the bigger institutions? And I know that with the downturn in the economy, you have to have a demand for loans as well as the ability to make loans for the transactions to be consummated. But
generally speaking, the small banks are very well capitalized. They typically have higher capital ratios than the large money center banks, and that is standing them in good stead. And many of them are in very good condition, and as I said, I expect them to be very helpful in providing credit to local communities. There are some small banks that are under stress, having to do mostly with real estate loans in distressed areas. So I can't say that the entire sector is completely without problems, but certainly that many of the banks are very well capitalized, are healthy. Some have taken TARP funds, some have not, but whatever the case may be, they do have, I think, the resources to play a very constructive role in helping the local economies get through this period.
Because I think it's fair to say from my perspective, of course, that those financial institutions that have been prudent, cautious, who have a different makeup in their balance sheet, certainly as we address the needs and the challenges of the institutions that need the attention and focus across the country, let's hopefully not craft, either in Congress or by policy at regulatory institutions, let's not craft policies that penalize the 6,000 or 7,000 who've been very good stewards in the name of straightening out the problems that do exist. Just an observation, Mr. Chairman.
I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yield back.